In this video, I'm gonna show you the truth about eating carbs. Have I been wrong all this time? Do I have to take all my words back? Make sure to stick around until the end to find out. These are the exact same tips that I give to all my students, and they've all gone to see some amazing results. So you know it works. Before we get started, don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell to get notified every time I post a new video every week. It will help support my channel. Alright, let's get into it. My nutrition approach has evolved quite a bit over the years the more I learn about it. I think the most dangerous people in the fitness industry are the dinosaurs that are stuck in their old ways and haven't read a book since the 80s or 90s. Yep, I'm calling them out. You really need to take a multifaceted approach when it comes to improving your overall health. Funny enough, as a byproduct, weight loss inevitably follows. Because the default factory setting of the human body is that it's healthy. It goes without saying that we need to do things that promote health. Now, if you look at the healthiest countries on the planet, as well as people with the longest lifespan, but more importantly, health span, what are they doing different? You can bet that a lot of those places don't have a 24-hour fitness gym. Funny enough, there are more gyms per capita in North America than anywhere else on the planet. We're also the fattest and the sickest. Go figure. They don't have shake weights or Peloton bikes. There's no detox teas or juice cleanse kits. But why are they living so much better and longer than we are? What's their secret? What's their diet like? How do they exercise? How are they living their lives? If you dig deep enough, they share 3 key traits. They walk a lot, at least 11,000 steps a day, including the elderly and the children, whereas the average North American walks 4,200 steps a day. If you're moving 3 times more than someone else, you're gonna look and live a lot longer. And I'm not even talking about working out at the gym and counting calories. I'm literally just talking about movement. Movement is medicine. That's why I'm such a big proponent of getting at least 10,000 steps a day. And that movement part becomes even more crucial for the elderly here in the West. Frailty and disability is unfortunately a common part of what it means to age here in North America. But just because that's the norm doesn't mean that it's right. When I was in Italy, for example, and I spent some time in the mountains, I was shocked by how active the elderly were. When it comes to doing daily chores, it was just part of life there. When I spent my summers in the farm as a kid when I was in the Philippines, the elderly also walked everywhere. That's what my grandparents did. My late grandpa was still taking care of his cattle in his 80s. It was just the norm. The second thing we've championed in North America, unfortunately, is sugar. I'd like to think that I'm well-traveled, and if you go to other countries, you'll quickly realize that they don't eat sugar like we eat sugar. They don't put sugar in everything. In North America, we put sugar in everything. One of the biggest culture shocks for me when I moved to Canada a couple of decades ago was free pop refills when you go to restaurants. I thought it was the greatest thing back then. The other culture shock was eating cake for breakfast. Now, you're probably confused right now. Like, what do I mean by that? If you think about it, a pancake is just a flat cake. A waffle is just cake with little squares. A muffin is just cake without icing. A donut is cake with a hole in the middle. Breakfast cereal is just crushed up cookies. It's just sugar on top of sugar. The third is carbs. Believe it or not, a lot of countries around the world actually eat more carbs than we do, which was shocking when I first read about that. I couldn't believe it. But there is a big difference in terms of the quality of the carbs they're eating. Asians, for example, have been perfecting eating white rice for centuries. Japan has more centenarians per capita on the planet, and they get the majority of their calories from white rice. Same thing with the Philippines and South Korea. I've been to those 3 countries, and they even eat rice for breakfast. China and Singapore, white rice is a staple. A lot of South American countries, same thing. They eat white rice and beans over there. I've never eaten so much rice and beans when I was in Costa Rica and Puerto Rico. Same thing with bread in Nordic countries like Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Norway, and Iceland. Mediterranean countries, you bet. In the Middle East where I grew up, more bread. Now you might be wondering, how could the Italians, for example, eat so much bread and pasta and not lead the world in obesity rates? For starters, the kind of bread they eat is different. They use a different type of wheat or it's fermented. The most common wheat plant in the US is called dwarf wheat. Europe also has vastly different rules when it comes to agriculture and using GMO products, but that's another topic for a separate video. Fermentation was actually how bread was made in the past. As early as 2000 BC, the Egyptians knew how to make fermented bread. Fermentation is key when it comes to the bread making process because it changes the characteristics of the starch. It pre-digests gluten. It also makes the nutrients more bioavailable. Sourdough is a perfect example of fermented bread, by the way. The prebiotics in fermented bread also help to keep your gut bacteria happy, and it may be less likely to spike blood sugar levels. Gluten sensitivity is actually more of a recent thing because of the way we make our bread. If you've traveled to Europe recently and all of a sudden your stomach can magically tolerate bread, this is why. Ezekiel bread is another great bread option because it's made out of sprouted grains. It also contains all essential amino acids and other nutrients. You could technically live off of it, although you'd have to eat a stupid amount to meet all your nutritional needs. Compare that to today's bread, which is basically nutrient-free. White bread is just empty calories of sadness. There's also been a lot of societies that have lived primarily on carbs. For example, the Catawbans in the Pacific. They eat a diet of root vegetables, coconut, fruit, vegetables, and fish, and have undetectable levels of cardiovascular disease, stroke, or obesity. 69% of their calories come from carbs, 21% from fat, and 10% from protein. The Okinawans in Japan are another great example. Again, Japan has the highest rate of centenarians per capita on the planet, even though they eat a lot of white rice. There's actually a disturbing study that when Japanese women move to the US, their life expectancy plummets by something like 8 years. Guys, by the way, if you're listening to this on iTunes, feel free to leave us a review if you're enjoying this. It'll mean the world to me because it's gonna help me reach more people. So thank you so much for doing that. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like button to tell the algorithm that this video is awesome. So how could Asians and other countries get away with eating so much rice? It's because they take out the bran and germ, which contains all the anti-nutrients in rice. That's why brown rice is not better for you. Again, they also eat a lot of sprouted and fermented food, as well as probiotics, also known as resistant starch. Resistant starch is actually indigestible and passes through the small intestine to take up residence in the colon, and it acts as a fuel source for healthful bacteria in the gut. Guys, gut health is actually everything. Examples of resistant starch are green bananas, as well as cooked and cooled russet potatoes and white rice. The molecular composition of the latter two actually changes from carbs into resistant starch when it's eaten cold. How cool is that? In the same manner, a green banana, also known as plantain, which is a dietary staple in the Caribbean and other South American countries, is mostly resistant starch, but as it ripens, it converts the resistant starch into carbs as it turns into a yellow banana. You can also see another example of this effect in the glycemic index. When you eat white bread, insulin, the storing hormone, spikes way up. But if you ate beans, which is also mostly carbs, the glycemic response is usually a lot lower, most likely because it also contains protein. Everyone is different, obviously, but that's why you have to test for yourself. But most natural foods are like that. You don't see that huge blood sugar and insulin spike that you normally get from these ultra-processed foods. Things really only start to go sideways when we start tampering with whole foods. The processing makes the poison. Basically, the more processing your food goes through, the worse it is for you. Again, I'm not anti-carbs. White rice is a staple of Filipino cuisine. Where my parents are from, I still eat rice. What I've always tried to point out is that not all carbs are created equal. Carbs from whole foods aren't bad for you. It really only becomes problematic when it disrupts homeostasis. The real culprits are ultra-processed refined carbs, sugar, and industrial seed oils. In the last 5 to 10 years, studies have revealed a lot more information about how devastating seed oils are to your health. If you want a great resource about this topic, you should check out The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Tychols. Industrial seed oils might be the most insidious one and are actually a bigger issue than sugar. And that's saying a lot, because at least with sugar, your body has a way to burn it off by turning it into glucose. You can't say the same about industrial seed oils. They especially become toxic when heated at high temperatures. I can't remember the expert who said this, but according to him, consuming industrial seed oils is basically like eating radiation. The hateful eight of these industrial and inflammatory seed oils are canola, cotton, corn, soybean, safflower, grapeseed, and rice bran. If you have them in your kitchen, you need to throw them out. You should have thrown them out yesterday. Instead, you want to use any saturated fat, really, like butter. Even bacon grease works, as well as coconut oil, avocado oil, macadamia nut oil, or ghee, and you can also use extra virgin olive oil at low temperatures. Unfortunately, these toxic seed oils are everywhere. This is why you need to learn how to read food labels. Most ultra-processed foods are laced with them. Fast food restaurants use and reuse the same rancid oil for any of their deep-fried products. That's why fast food is so cheap. Even high-end restaurants use them to cut costs. I used to bartend at a fancy bar for a while, and you can bet that they were using these toxic seed oils for anything that's deep fried. What's even worse is food companies have also manufactured a completely new category of ultra-processed carbs that barely scratches the mechanoreceptors in our guts. These foods easily enable us to consume hundreds, if not thousands of calories without signaling satiety. I'm talking about puffed snacks like Cheetos, Doritos, Funyuns, Rice Puffs, Cocoa Puffs, and potato chips. I mean, Lay's potato chips marketing brag is "betcha can't eat just one," and they're right. All of those foods induce a phenomenon called vanishing caloric density. You put it in your mouth, you bite down on it for a couple of crunches, and then it seems to almost just melt into nothingness. And if something melts down that quickly, your brain thinks that there's no calories in it. You can just keep eating it forever. This is why you can't just have one Dorito chip. You get a taste of this highly palatable food, your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. Next thing you know, you're staring down at the bottom of the bag. You have to realize that the biggest food companies out there have invested millions of dollars in food research on exactly how to short circuit our brains. We're no match for it. It's also a double whammy for your metabolic health, because you can bet that a lot of these frankenfoods also contain industrial seed oils. North America also happens to be the birthplace of fast food. We eat out in North America more than any of those healthy and long-lived countries. When I was a kid, fast food was a treat. It was reserved for birthdays or special occasions. I mean, my family also didn't have a lot of money, so that could also be a reason. But these healthy and long-lived countries also eat food seasonally. Nowadays, you can get any type of fruit all year round. Seasons? What seasons? We've circumvented that. My point for this video is that the specific macronutrient makeup, specifically in relation to carbs and fat, is actually less important than the overall makeup of your diet, as long as you're eating minimally processed foods. The most important thing is to always prioritize protein, combined with some resistance training to trigger muscle protein synthesis to build and maintain muscle, basically. You also need some essential fat. If you're getting your carbs from whole foods, it's almost inconsequential. Be sensible about it, obviously. Again, everyone is different. But generally speaking, if you can keep your carb intake anywhere between 50 to 150 grams per day and no more than 50 grams per meal, you're absolutely winning. It also depends on your activity level. Generally speaking, the more active you are, the more carbs you can get away with. Again, the most important thing is that your diet is mostly minimally processed. Also, a lot of these long-lived societies cook at home. That is such an underrated tip. It rarely ever gets mentioned these days. If you control your own food and what goes in it, your success rate will skyrocket. So stop ordering takeout and delivery. And lastly, you want to eat until you're satisfied, but not until you're completely stuffed. Imagine being stuffed at 100%. You want to eat until you're satiated at around 80%. The Japanese have a term for this called harahachi banmei. I'm pretty sure I just butchered that pronunciation. But again, they live the longest, so they're obviously doing something right. The next question then becomes, how are you actually supposed to eat if you want to lose weight? Because here's the thing, 80% of your body composition is determined by your diet. You can't just freestyle this part. Do you have a proven plan that you can follow? To help you with that, I want to give you a free copy of my Lean Body Blueprint. This is how I was finally able to get rid of all my unwanted body fat without depriving myself of my favorite foods or spending countless hours at the gym. It's a simple 4-step process specifically designed for busy professionals, and it's the exact same blueprint that I teach to all my students, and they've all gone to see some amazing results. If you want to be the next success story, then download your free copy of the Lean Body Blueprint right now. There's going to be a link somewhere at the top here or in the description box. Just click on it, type in your email, and I'll send it to you right away. Hey, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and share it with your friends. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post a new video every week, and feel free to leave a comment below if you have any questions about this video. Alright, I'll see you in the next one. Virtual high five.